Hello guys, it's your video uncle. Let's get on with the video.
Hey guys, it's Chris. From improvised rescue missions to crazy face mask solutions to the zombie hero that led his soldiers into battle. Here are 11 of the dumbest ideas that actually worked. Number 11, shade balls in the water. This is one creative solution that turned common sense on its head, but it might actually be a decent idea after all. When the Los Angeles Reservoir was facing a crisis due to a severe drought in 2015, officials decided to take a strange and unexpected action in order to save the water. The reservoir was evaporating at a startling rate, so the government purchased nearly 100 million black plastic balls and dumped them all into the water. That's right, they covered the surface of a massive reservoir with small plastic spheres. But what was the point? They wanted to reduce evaporation by putting a barrier between the surface of the water and the hot, dry air. Additionally, these balls prevent algae from growing by keeping sunlight from hitting the water. But was it really a good idea? The balls take a lot of energy to produce, and they would need to save a significant quantity of water to be worth their expense. Luckily, over 5 years sitting in the hot sun and covering the reservoir, it seems like they have actually been worth their cost. They've kept huge quantities of water safe and snug under their protective layer. Projects like this one may become normal in the American Southwest in the future if droughts continue. You might have to get ready to see your own ball-covered lake in your city in years to come. Number 10, the pants life jacket. A German backpacker named Arne was recently sailing with his brother Helge when they fell overboard on his yacht and into the sea. This guy ended up getting set adrift all by himself in the violent waters, and the only way he was able to stay alive was with a dumb idea that actually worked. Apparently, the German tourist had learned the survival tactic that saved his life only because he heard that Navy SEALs do the same thing. Once out at sea, the German took his jeans off, made a knot at the end of each leg, and then inflated them and pushed them underwater, creating a makeshift life vest. If making a life jacket out of your jeans seems like kind of a stupid idea, it's because it kinda is. But in this case, it was an idea that ended up working out quite well, and it saved his life. The guy was adrift for a total of 3 hours, which doesn't seem like too long, but when you start to think about how scary the ocean is, it probably felt like forever for Arne. He just hung on to his substitute life vest until a helicopter finally found him floating through the water and was able to throw down a rope so he could climb to safety. Everyone thought for sure he was dead, but his dumb idea of making a life preserver out of his jeans had ended up saving his life, and he was able to see his family and young daughter once again. Number 9, the pet rock. When it comes to dumb ideas, there's been nothing dumber in the history of humanity than the pet rock. The pet rock was the brainchild of a marketing specialist named Gary Dahl, who had originally gotten the idea while sitting in a bar listening to his friend complain about his kid's pet. Gary suggested to his friend that they give their child a pet rock instead of a dog. This dumb idea was just a joke, but it turned out to make Gary a very rich man. He marketed his pet rock as the perfect household companion, especially for young children. The pet rock didn't need to be fed, it didn't bark, it didn't require any cleaning up, and even more ridiculous, Gary included a set of instructions detailing how to properly care for a pet rock. It even included a cardboard box that looked like a pet carrier. This wildly dumb idea had Gary selling the pet rock for $3.95, and according to Business Insider, he was making a profit of $3 each. Within the first 6 months that the pet rock was for sale, Gary moved over 5 million units. This turned into one of the greatest fads in world history. It was just a stupid idea that made an ordinary guy a filthy rich millionaire. Makes you wonder how many of your dumb ideas might actually turn into something trendy. Number 8, coffee pot hot dogs. Here's a dumb idea that actually works. Cook your hot dogs in your coffee maker. If you have a coffee machine, you actually have an entire cooking module at your disposal. Some genius came up with the brilliant idea of cooking hot dogs inside of a coffee maker's carafe, using the simplicity of the coffee machine to forego having to make dirty dishes on the stove. And while this seems completely dumb, it actually cooks the hot dogs pretty well. It doesn't take up a lot of time, and it requires absolutely no energy. Your coffee might have a little hot dog taste, but for some, that's a bonus. But wait, because even more amazing gourmet meals can be made right inside your coffee pot. You can make noodle soup, you can create chocolate fondue, and believe it or not, you can even bake a cake simply by using the heating element at the bottom of your coffee pot. With a little ingenuity, you can turn a coffee pot into a fully functioning stove and oven. So what's the first thing you're gonna try to make in your coffee pot? Let me know in the comments below. Give this video a like, and why don't you hit that subscribe button while you're at it too. Number 7, face mask mayhem. People have been getting pretty creative with their face masks. In the age of COVID-19, no idea is too dumb. And rather than complain about wearing a mask, some undercover geniuses have been making incredibly crafty, dumb face masks that actually work. In Gaza, a mother was photographed making masks for her children out of pieces of cabbage. And while this may seem silly, it still works. And then there are these crazy photos coming out of Indonesia, in which a street parking worker was spotted wearing a used water jug over his head to keep the germs away. And you might think it looks ridiculous to have a water jug on your head, but if the water can't get out, I'm pretty sure the germs can't get in, right? I mean, I'm no doctor, but Speaking of water jugs, children all over the world have been seen using pop bottles as makeshift face masks, simply by stuffing their faces inside of them. Adults have been seen doing this too, by cutting 2-liter bottles in half and strapping them to their faces. And of course, if you're feeling exceptionally lazy, you can be like the people spotted in China, literally just putting plastic bags over their heads for protection. It seems dumb, but I guess it does the trick. Although that last one could potentially be pretty dangerous, but hey, no coronavirus. Number 6, talking pictures. When the radio was invented in the 1920s, there was a corresponding drop in the attendance of movie theaters. However, the guys at the top of the ladder in the film industry were not interested in adding voices to movies to try and get more customers. In the words of 1924 film director D.W. Griffith, "We do not want now and we shall never want the human voice in our films." Movies with human voices were voted as a bad idea, with an actress at the time named Ethel Barrymore even agreeing that the theater-going public would never put up with a talking picture, known back in the day as a talkie. Of course, this was a bad idea that really ended up paying off eventually. Of course, people wanted to listen to voices in the movies. The first feature-length talking film was called The Jazz Singer, and it opened in October of 1927. Much to everyone's disbelief, it was a huge success. Studios then rushed to produce films with talking, singing, screaming, all the loud noises in them. Although many people still claimed that it was just a fad and that it would go away. And if that was the case, well then the fad of talking pictures is still going strong even today. Number 5, square watermelon. It seems like trying to purposely grow square watermelons would be a pretty dumb idea. After all, watermelons are traditionally round and delicious. And yet in Japan, farmers were having a bit of a hard time with round watermelons being too awkward and taking up way too much space in their small refrigerators. Somebody got the strange idea to grow watermelons inside of glass boxes so that they would grow into a cube shape. This seemed ridiculous, but it actually caught on. The watermelons were grown as squares. They were able to be packaged and shipped normally, and nobody had to deal with the annoyingness of the circle. Even today, the dumb idea of the square watermelon is still making people a lot of money. A Japanese square watermelon can sell for up to $82. But don't worry, if you're not interested in paying $82 for a square watermelon, you can just grow one yourself in your garden. All you need are some watermelon seeds and a glass box. Number 4, long arm savior. A few years ago, there was a very strange story about a Mongolian herdsman named Bo Shi-shun, who was called in to save a pair of dolphins. They had swallowed plastic at their aquarium in the northeast of China and were in desperate trouble. Obviously, calling a random herdsman to save some dolphins seems like a pretty dumb idea. But in this case, the herdsman was actually the world's tallest man, standing at 7 foot 9 inches. This guy used his incredibly long arms to reach deep inside the stomachs of the dolphins and pulled out the plastic shards that had been causing them such misery. In the end, the guy with his incredibly long arms saved the lives of the dolphins and became something of a hero. Although he was already famous and in the Guinness Book of World Records for his height. The only thing that's not clear is why the tall man was called instead of a veterinarian. I mean, it seems like a veterinarian with proper tools would be a better choice, but everything did work out in the end. This guy was basically the herdsman version of Ant-Man, and it's nice of him to use his powers for good. Number 3, the Giant Mirror. A town shrouded in darkness in Norway used to live in shadows for half of the year. But the people living in the little town weren't happy with their dark lives. When there's no sun, people get gloomy and upset, and it was time for the small town of Rjukan to get some sunshine back in their lives. But how do you force the sun to come out? The answer for this small Norwegian town was a giant mirror. The idea was first talked about in 1913, and it was even published in a local newspaper. However, instead of building a giant mirror to harness sunlight, a cable car was built in 1928 so that people could reach the top of the nearby valley and soak in some much-needed sunlight. This proved to not be the best idea. In this case, it was a good idea that actually didn't work. It wouldn't be until recently, a few years ago, that the mirror was finally installed. What first seemed like a dumb idea turned out to be an awesome idea, as 3 solar-paneled mirrors are now stationed at the valley peak above the town, controlled by computers to track the sun as it moves across the sky and redirect its rays into Rjukan. With all that extra sunlight, the residents of the small town are feeling much less gloomy. Number 2, bottled air. 2 guys from Canada recently sold about $300,000 worth of canned air. That's right, these guys have gotten rich by canning air and then selling it for a ridiculous price. Apparently, the company first started when a couple of entrepreneurs sold a Ziploc bag of air for $168 online as what had probably been just a joke. This definitely seems like the dumbest business decision ever, except that it's actually working. Clean Canadian air is being purchased heavily from retail stores and online, primarily in South Korea. And according to CBC News, there's actually quite a bit of competition. There are air companies starting up all over the world, transporting their air to other places where people might want to try it. A single can holds enough air inside for 160 breaths and is currently sold for $32. Now that's some serious profit. Number 1, the zombie captain. One of the dumbest and yet most brilliant ideas in military history involved Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, a national Spanish hero and mercenary soldier who fought under the Spanish king Alfonso VII, helping to liberate many parts of Spain and ultimately capturing the Muslim Caliphate of Valencia before dying in 1099, when the city became besieged 5 years after its conquering by the Almoravids. While there's no direct evidence that this happened, legend says that after Rodrigo died in the middle of the siege of Valencia, his corpse was ordered to be placed onto his horse to boost the morale of his troops. His body was apparently fitted with armor and then sent thundering into battle so that the attackers of Valencia could see that the fearless warrior was still alive. This incredibly dumb idea ended up working and the day was saved, though Rodrigo did stay dead. The Spaniards won the battle, yet Valencia did eventually fall to the invading army and was not recaptured again for another 125 years. Thanks for watching. What was the dumbest idea you ever had that actually worked? Let me know in the comments and thank you.
Bye, guys.